A wonderful turnout. We kind of turned this around on short notice. Julie was in town from working bridges, so we're glad to have her here and thought it'd be a great opportunity to get together. So we're here today to celebrate the transfer of Craighead Bridge from county ownership to Working Bridges, who's our new owner from Iowa. Happy to have them. Really happy to see this project come to fruition. I personally can remember standing here May 1st, 2009 was the first time we had a meeting on this project, 8 years ago. And that day I was standing here, we were meeting with some other folks. I still remember it because I was leaving for Disney World in 2 days. So it was the first trip to Disney World. This was kind of the last step to get to vacation. So we're standing here doing the bridge project, and I didn't think that it would take 8 years to get to where we're at today. Never thought it, but the good part is that we made it. We're here today to celebrate the transfer of ownership. For those of you who know me, I live just down the road. So this one's kind of special. When you look at our bridge inventory, we have 28 bridges throughout the county. They're all special to the county, and since I manage the program, they're special to me in certain ways, but this one especially, when you look at it, I can remember as a boy driving over the bridge. I wanted my parents to drive over it so I could hear the tires hum, and that was always special. And then with my kids now, before it was closed, they always said, "Daddy, let's take the bumpy bridge." So every time we come through, they wanted to take the bridge. So when it closed in 2013, it was one of those questions, what do we do with it now? We had a lot of questions from the community, questions from my kids, "Daddy, are we ever going to ride on the bumpy bridge again?" But it also has another distinction for the Stoner family. This was the first bridge that my wife damaged. So I still remember the day I had a golf tournament. I was over at Mayapple. My phone rang. I pick it up. My wife's crying. So that was, indication that something is wrong. And I said, "Honey, what's going on?" And she said, "I hate your bridge." So being the loving husband I am, I said, "Is the bridge damaged?" So I knew which one it was. It was this one. So she scraped the guardrail. So we have a little evidence in our old van that tells us that she had a little run-in with Craighead Bridge. But I think that's what's special about some of our historic resources, that we all have stories. We all have memories about the historic resources in our communities. And that's what makes them special. And when we look ahead to the future, when we lose some of those, it feels like we lose a little bit of who we are, lose a little bit of our past. So today we're here to really celebrate a victory here, that we were able to preserve Craighead Bridge. So we have this memory here in the community, but right alongside of it, we have new Craighead Bridge. So when we look here, we're able to preserve the 19th century and what that means to us. But right adjacent to it, we have 21st century infrastructure that's going to last us for a very long time. So we're happy to have in Cumberland County to be able to make that connection, to be able to preserve the history, look forward to the future. So we have a lot of folks here today, really happy the number of members of the team that came together to make this happen. This wasn't one person or one entity's responsibility. It was really a team effort to make this happen. Everybody that worked on this was so great to work with. Patient, as I said, it took a while. All of us were patient, but we all had that common goal of trying to do the right thing. And when you see what's behind us here, you see the turnout here today, it's proof that we have done the right thing. So with that, I just wanted to call up a slate of speakers here today, a lot of them team members here to kind of give their own perspectives. Most importantly, we want to hear from Julie Bowers from Working Bridges, hear their plans of the new bridge. So with that, I'll call up Jim Hertzer, Cumberland County Commissioner, to get us started off.
Good afternoon. It is an exciting day here in South Middleton Township and at Cumberland County, and don't really have an awful lot to add to what Kirk said. I would like to say that, as with most successes, it's a collaborative effort. And I certainly want to thank the folks, our friends from Working Bridges and the State Department of Transportation. I know I'm probably going to leave somebody out. Our Planning Department and Kirk Stoner and the Pennsylvania Historical and Museum Commission, and everybody, including our friends here in South Middleton Township, for coming together to make this happen. We in recent years have been moving aggressively toward the repair and replacement of our county-owned structurally deficient bridges, and we're making some significant progress. And of course, this new replacement bridge over here is one of those examples. It's not easy. It always takes longer than any of us want, but it's important that we meet the traffic demands of today. And Kirk's right. I mean, it was like we were faced with a dilemma in terms of Okay, so now we have a replacement bridge planned, but what about, this historic 118-year-old steel truss bridge? So it didn't happen overnight, but we finally got a taker. And I'm supposed to officially, on behalf of my colleagues on the Board of Commissioners, transfer ownership today. And I was asking Julie, what should that be? A key, or should that be a steel beam, or how are we going to do this? But anyway, I want to thank our friends from Working Bridges. I understand this is one of many projects that they've engaged in around the country to preserve our heritage, to preserve our history. So we're grateful for that. This is really a win-win, and for those traveling public of today, with a new modern bridge over here, and then also to preserve generations to come, this historic bridge, which can be used for fishing and hiking and bicycling and other recreational purposes. So, in any event, my colleagues regret that they can't be here. There's some other issues and things that came up, but on behalf of Commissioner Eichelberger and Commissioner DiFilippo, I officially would like to transfer ownership of this to Working Bridges. Thank you very much.
I'll accept that. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Jim. I can remember back in March, we were closing in on the start of our project. Started in April for construction. We're still dealing with a lot of the issues. What are we going to do with the old bridges and our opportunities to save it? Luckily, I got an email from Julie Bowers at Working Bridges. It said, hey, we may be interested in this bridge. As we looked at the timetable of the bridge and all the funding and everything, things that, again, we've worked 8 years to get to, it seemed like it just wouldn't happen. But as Julie and I talked, we figured out, hey, this might be an opportunity to try and do the right thing. We worked through it. She was great to work with, came through, submitted our only bid in the bridge, only bid for $1. So she was our highest bidder and only bidder. So we were so thankful for Julie and her team. As we've moved ahead, they've nothing but been a pleasure to work with, and I really look forward to great things. So Julie, I wanted to call you up and tell us about all your great plans.
Thank you for coming out today, because it really is the celebration of the new and the old. And without PennDOT having helped with the process of partial funding on this bridge for you all in Cumberland County, this new bridge probably wouldn't have been saved. But we have to go back to 2014 for us and PennDOT, where we stepped in with Preservation Pennsylvania to try to find close to real numbers for the cost of preservation in the Bridges for Sale program that was spearheaded by one of my heroes, Kara Russell from PennDOT's Cultural Affairs. So Kara has done a lot for saving the bridges that we can save in Pennsylvania. And this is one of the bridges that we looked at. We also bought another bridge that we looked at. I have a bridge problem, I think. But it's not a bad problem to have. I started my business when our bridge in Iowa was felled by flooding and trees with root balls on August 13th of 2009. And I'm just stubborn, and the county was just going to scrap it, and we found iron workers in Michigan that said they'd come and pull our bridge out of the river. So that's how we started on the bridges. We have a documentary out there on the Piano Bridge in Texas on YouTube. I've nearly got a master's degree in this by this point with working. It's not any degree any of you have, because I don't know how one works with all the entities that we have to work with, and how we have to prove ourselves every day as a nonprofit, because, we're not a legal government. We are just people like you that stood up and said, if somebody's going to save our bridges, it's probably going to have to be us. The counties, the townships, they just don't have money for this endeavor, and we get it. And then we try to stay out of the red tape that comes with taking grant money too, because that can put you in delays that you don't even know about. So we declined $120,000 from PennDOT on this job. And we did that because I'm crazy, probably. But it got us to this point where Kirk and I could could essentially negotiate a deal, and that's what it took, was getting the federal government out of the project. We don't want to do that every time, but in this case, it's going to take more than that to fix this bridge. But so let's talk bridge. Inclined end posts. If you're going to talk bridge, you got to know the parts, right? And every fourth grader learns this today on truss bridges. So you have inclined end posts, portal bracing with a lovely sign. You have vertical posts. You have diagonal rods that keep those verticals on that side. Underneath, you have the lower cord, which is really bad on this bridge and is the bulk of the cost for restoration if we're to do a full restoration. You have lateral bracing, you have sway bracing. That's the parts of a bridge. They go together with pins. This one has lasted 118 years. Engineers don't like pin-connected bridges because they are structurally deficient and do not have the redundancy, and they might fall down. I've seen a broken pin and the bridge didn't fall down, but you know, that's the deal. They want redundancy so that they don't fail and injure somebody, and no one wants to hurt anybody. So I'm not an engineer. I have made friends with some engineers, and I look forward to making more friends with the engineers here because we want to make this a training bridge, right? So we have some young engineers here today that might very well work with our engineer, or we'll just hire Pennsylvania engineers to help us with the working drawings on this bridge. And that will include the failure of the shoes on this bridge where the pins go through. So currently it's resting on an angles of the pins. That's what's holding this bridge up on the interior of these inclined end posts. So we're hoping that we'll be able to use a jacking system and not have to bring in cranes to lift the bridge to fix those shoes. Once that's done, we plan to bring in a master craftsman mason, Andy DeGrucci from Limeworks US in Quakertown, to help. He'll bring a class of people that want to learn how to fix these stone abutments. That's a good thing. You have a lot of stone abutments in your state. Beautiful walls. So that's what we're trying to do. We have not started fundraising. We are set up with the Secretary of State to do that. But we don't want to step on people's toes that are already fundraising for other projects. So, you know, we're trying to step lightly, make a plan with the local community. I wanted to introduce Wes Tate, who is the landowner here, Wes, come on up, show people who you are. Wes is really the reason that this bridge was saved, because he read about it in the paper that we couldn't leave it here, and he said, what? You can leave it here, essentially, right?
Yeah.
So he called me and said, I don't care if you leave it here. So he will be our on-the-ground representative for working bridges on this project here and helping us come up with interested parties that want to help or be involved in the project. So, what else? Any questions? I'm not supposed to take questions.
I have one. Are you able to accept donations for this?
We can start accepting donations today. We are registered as the North Skunk Greenbelt Association, which is a lawyer's name. It's really far too long for any forms. NSRGA is our nonprofit. We've been in business for 7 years. We just got our documentation from the state that says we're legal. We're trying to set up a bank account here while I'm in the area and get the easements figured out. And then it's the plan. What are we going to do with this bridge? Really, it's your bridge. That's how I look at it. It's not. Well, I'll call it mine. I will, and you'll hate me. But because they're all mine, if I'm going to get involved in them, it's going to take a lot of my time and effort, and it's mine. But it can be yours too. So.
Okay, thanks, Julie. All right, as I said earlier, it was a team effort in kind of putting everything together. One of our team members that was really instrumental, especially helping out in funding, is PennDOT. And we wanted Mike Kaiser from District 8 to step up and say a few words.
And timing's always critical, and I'm told this bridge down here is posted at 7 tons, so there'll be a lot of distractions while I'm talking here for the next minute or so, because I'm pretty sure I'll be backing up here. Again, I just wanted to say congratulations to everyone who was involved in this project, specifically those that worked right up to the very end to try to get to where we are today. It is a difficult process. You know, PennDOT has $2.5 billion in a year construction program, so there's rules that are put in place for every project, and some fit better than others. And we'll continue to work with you to see what we can do to help out. The department appreciates the opportunity to be here, by the way, today to take part of this ceremony. I want to, again, without the leadership of Cumberland County, we wouldn't be here today. I also want to recognize, again, I know there were comments about Federal Highway, but the timing of all this was a challenge. The project plans had already been bid. Federal Highway Administration already signed off on what the plans were for this structure right behind me, and the contractor actually put a bid price in on to do this work. So thankfully, Working Bridge showed up there, and we were able to pull all the parties together and have a great conversation. So there was some flexibility there in the end from Federal Highway. Kinsley Construction, by the way, also. Again, there's a value to that bid item they had in the contract, so they recognize the importance as well, which is great. Kinsley's a local contractor from this region down in York County. So, I was asked just to speak briefly about the importance of PennDOT maintaining and helping communities maintain that. And I would say it's also a responsibility. Again, there's a lot of old structures out there. As an engineer, these things are pretty cool. Just consider this design started showing up in the mid-1800s, 1844, somewhere around in there, and was kind of a standard go-to design until just up to World War II. They're easy to construct. You can do it with minimal equipment, which when you're in a rural area like Pennsylvania, that's what you're looking for. So, part of this preservation is to make sure we maintain the heritage of our transportation network in the past. When we build new bridges, we have a goal of trying to make sure they last 100 years. So maybe sometimes you got to look over your shoulder and say, well, this one closed in 2013? So it's 114 years. Now again, we know it doesn't see the traffic weights and large trucks as we see here today, but we can learn from that. And again, at the end of the day, it also helps really preserve the fabric of the community, the neighborhoods. That's what's important. If I'm sure Secretary Richards, she has this program now she likes to refer to as PennDOT Connects, where we get out with all the partners, all the agencies, and define what we want this project to look like. So, given the timeline, she was probably county commissioner at the time when we started this, but the important thing is it ended up at the right place. So, again, thanks for having PennDOT here. Appreciate the opportunity to speak on behalf of the department, and best of luck moving forward. And if there's a way we can continue to help, we'll certainly find a way to do that. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Another key partner was the State Historic Preservation Office. So we worked in concert with them to figure out, first, to market the bridge statewide and nationwide, really, to see who may be interested in it, but then just getting some insight into the importance of the bridge and how to move forward in its preservation, ultimately making the connection with Working Bridges. So we asked Tyra Guyton to come today from State Historic Preservation Office. Tyra, if you make a few comments.
Metal truss bridges like Craighead stand as monuments to Pennsylvania's industrial heritage. In the 19th century, the heart of the nation's iron and steel industry was right here in Pennsylvania, and it attracted many bridge engineer companies to settle in the state. Although those companies are largely gone, they left behind one of the largest and most diverse collection of metal truss bridges in the country. Unfortunately, modern traffic needs in combination with insufficient maintenance funding have made rehabilitation and ongoing maintenance for these bridges expensive, and many of the bridges have been demolished and replaced with modern structures. In the last 15 years alone, we have lost over 50% of the state's metal truss bridges. leaving the state with more covered bridges than we have historic metal truss bridges. So it's in this environment that I commend Cumberland County and Work in Bridges for coming together and saving the Craighead Bridge. As Craighead shows, there are options to demolition. A new bridge can be built in a different alignment, allowing the old bridge to be transferred to a new owner and preserved in place. In addition, metal truss bridges were designed to be disassembled and moved and can be relocated for adaptive reuse as pedestrian or light vehicular bridges. Preservation of historic bridges leads to an increase in heritage tourism and can be a powerful economic development tool for any community. Recognizing the benefits of these bridges, PennDOT and the State Historic Preservation Office have developed a marketing program to match bridges that can no longer serve as modern vehicular use with groups that need or want a bridge, such as rail trails or parks. And we look towards bridges like Craighead that have successfully been adaptively reused to serve as models for the success of this program. Thank you.
All right, next up we have South Middleton Township. When you look sometimes at the state, I was at the state planning board meeting today, and one of the topics we were looking at was, do we have too many small boxes? Do we have too many small units of local government? Is that making us less competitive as a state? Does it create conflict? Does it hurt our chances at economic development? A lot of times you see that. You may see conflicts between municipalities. You may see conflicts between municipalities and counties. I think in Cumberland County we're very fortunate that the county has an excellent relationship with all of our municipalities. And in particular on this project, South Middleton Township. We work hand in glove with them on every step of the way, from the design of the bridge to talking about preservation options. And it's always great when you see sometimes criticisms of local government, how they don't work together, when you see great examples of intergovernmental cooperation. I think this bridge is one of those. So we asked Tom Faley from South Middleton Township to make a few comments.
We owe a great deal to the commissioners for making this day happening. Jim, I'm so glad you're here. We can give our personal thanks to. We owe so much. Kurt himself, hours, days spent on this. He kept us surprised every step of the way, and he never gave up. It would have been so easy to just say, junk it. In other words, take it away, demolish it, we'll get some value out of the scrap. It didn't happen. He worked, and again, we were given, it was like he said, slow, but it was steady. They knew what they were doing, and that time's got to count as time in purgatory. So you're on your way straight to heaven, I guess, Kurt. But we are grateful for county members for making the day possible. We're grateful for Julie picking up with the Working Bridges, because honestly, at one period, as hard as he worked, he advertised in state publications, national publications. We weren't getting any bites, and I'm afraid the day was going to come where it would be taken away for trade. You stepped in with Working Bridges, and what a difference it's made. We have high hopes because we cherish it. It's on our township logo. If you take a look, it's smack right in the middle of the township logo. As Corey would say, if you take it away, I guess we have to do some cutting and slicing, what have you, in the logo itself, but the logo's still good. But we have so much gratitude. And Mike, in your comments, truss bridges being through the end of World War II, true. I share one common thing with the bridge, age. 55 years ago as a cadet at West Point, in my engineering class, we were given truss bridge. That was the going thing. We were using the Hudson's 1939 engineering manual, but we were designing a very simple for these type of truss bridges. So it really gave me a feel for this thing. Not that I would advise you ever to go use my calculations and go over one, because this lasted 118 years. I don't think mine would have lasted 118 minutes, but it's been a wonderful day for this township. It's a great day for it, and thanks to so many that had such a big part in it.
All right, last up we have the Craighead House. So many of you know, just down the street we have another historic resource with the Craighead House, which has an extensive history, a great story to tell, and it's linked with our bridge. So when you look at it, we start to get a critical mass of historic resources all in one location. So we asked Tom Benji to come up and tell us a little bit about the Craighead House and how it links to the bridge.
Okay, thank you, Kurt. when I was researching the Craighead family for the book about them, fortunately, several of the older people were still alive, and they were able to share stories with me. When they were young, the bridge served as sort of a boundary. When they would canoe, they wouldn't be allowed to go past the bridge. But as they got older, that limit was relieved. In 1930, here's some example, and it figured heavy in their legends, heavily, very large. In 1933, there was a flood, a major flood here. And the kids, Gene and the twins and the Frit and neighbors, the Bill Coyle and people, climbed up on the bridge, jumped into the floodwaters that were raging down. When they got to the railroad bridge, which is the Craighead house, the water was already up to the railroad bridge, so they'd have to dive underwater to get past the railroad bridge. And if you're familiar with the Yellow Breeches, it makes a 90-degree bend just past the railroad bridge. Well, Gene was telling me how the water would throw them to the outside, the current would throw them to the outside, and there's a tree that had roots sticking out. They would reach out and grab the roots and pull themselves out of the water, otherwise they'd end up in Boiling Springs. And after they pulled themselves out, they'd run back up here and do it again. Okay, Bill Coyle told me a story, and this one I have not been able to verify from anyone else, but people say they could have done. Anyone who is familiar with the Craighead twins knew that there are about three things. One, they're very imaginative, they're very athletic, and they're physically small. When they were freshmen at Penn State, they wrestled 118, and as sophomores and later, 126. Well, they would race, according to Bill Coyle, they would race each other over the top of the bridge on their hands. And people that were familiar with them said they hadn't seen them do it, but they could have. The twins were also pranksters, and one of their favorite places to prank was here. One Halloween, they went a little too far. They pulled up the planks that covered the flooring of the bridge. That's before it had this iron, I don't know what you call it. In fact, they always call this the Iron Bridge. That's the name of the Iron Bridge. They pulled up these planks as a prank. Well, some car didn't see that, and it ended up hanging precariously, and that broke them of making those pranks. Okay. Now, Lori, Craighead Rudolph, grew up in the house. You can't see it from here, but right diagonally across the bridge or the creek from here, and she has some stories to tell about what it was like, living right here.
Thank you, Tom. Jeez, this is wonderful. This is so sentimental, this bridge to the Craighead family. I think the bridge was built in 1899, so I can imagine how many Craigheads walked over this bridge. Craigheads were here all the time. And we started out, every summer I'd come to the Craighead house, and that was when I was about 5 years old. And my father gave me, he instructed us how to swim, and we were allowed to swim. He wanted us to swim from the railroad bridge up here and back again. And I had fins on. Well, I tricked him. I walked a little bit, but I got $1 for it. Another thing you were saying about the thumps underneath the bridge, well, we'd take a rowboat up. And we liked to hear the thumps too when the cars came over. And we used to sing to the cars, my sister and I. Because I was asking her what's her best memory, and that was her best memory. And then sometimes my father, who's a prankster also, just like the other Craigheads, he would take us in the rowboat, and he had to play his clarinet or his saxophone and embarrass us, of course, but we had a great time. He used to check the ice. We used to skate here, and he'd come up all the way up to the bridge here to check and make sure the ice was right. He was a hydrologist and studied water and floods and everything, so that he would always make sure the water was safe for us or the ice was safe for us. Our boundaries also, like Tom said, were from here down to the railroad bridge. And when I stand up here on this bridge and look down, well, there are some trees over here now. It's beautiful. And when the leaves are really turning, it's just the most beautiful thing. And then when you go to the railroad tracks and look up, it's beautiful. Anyway, I had a great time when I was a kid here, and I want everyone to enjoy this bridge, and thank you so much, Working Bridges, for helping us out. And I just wanted to give word